Welcome to the construction safety training for construction inspection. This training is for any construction inspector working on New York State DOT construction projects. I am hitting, I'm on a fumble here, Mark. I got the antidote and I can't forward the next screen. You know how I get rid of that? Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Again, my name is Thomas Gaudet. I work for Region 3. I'm the Construction Safety Coordinator. I'll be presenting this safety training. I hope you all feel it's very valuable. And please share with others and continue to revisit this training whenever you feel you need to be retrained or just to brush up on a few things, especially during the winter months. The expectations for this training, these are the construction safety topics that'll generally be covered. Personal protective equipment, situational awareness, safety and health requirements, work zone traffic control, backup policy, spotter, electronic portable devices and cell phones, fall protection, confined spaces, silica, open excavations and trenches, workplace violence, harassment, accidents now known as incidents reporting in COVID-19. Note these safety topics do not include all the topics covered in OSHA 10 class. This started out as a kind of just a checklist of mine when new people were on board, and now it's grown into a safety training for all employees that will be working on our projects. Sometimes trying to get OSHA 10 approved is time sensitive, and sometimes people have to wait before the training class is offered. So this is a quick way to get awareness to these safety topics as people are coming onto our projects. The outcomes for this training is to have a understand basic knowledge of construction safety, recognize impacts and consequences for unsafe practices, identify, address safety hazards and unsafe behavior, comply with safety procedures, when and how to report incidents, gain resource to educate others, continue to learn, ask questions, seek guidance on unfamiliar construction tasks. This won't cover all the construction tasks that you'll be exposed to on any given day. So if you don't know something, ask. Everybody is responsible for safety, and safety is always number one. The first safety topic is PPE. Please note at the bottom of this slide, and most of the safety training topics have a link at the end for additional literature on the topic. These links are expected to be used and read by each trainee to fulfill this training, and it'll only be referenced during this recorded presentation. So I encourage everybody to visit these links, and there's more information on the topic at hand. We don't have enough time to cover it in that much detail. So PPE, one of the most important things you need to do on any project is to wear your PPE. It's free. Your employer shall be supplying any PPE to their workers. You know, we're out there in the public too, so it's the perception that we're giving the public too. So we got it. We might as well wear it. Bad things happen when you don't wear it. And like I said, it doesn't cost you anything. And if any PPE gets soiled or damaged, you should be able to get it replaced in a timely manner. Situational awareness. One of my personal favorite topics is I have a personal story to share that may have saved my life. Situational awareness to me is more about good habit behaviors. before I get into what's on the slide, I'll share my story first. I was at work one day on a Friday. It was about a year and a half ago, and I was doing a TSM on Matt Howe's death that most of you might have heard of, and I was leaving work after I got the TSM out, and I felt like I was returning home from a funeral. I was not in a rush to get home. I was totally like, radio was off, just driving the speed limit on my way home, and I ended up noticing a car behind me going at high rates of speed. I realized that I needed to put myself in a safe position, so I moved over to the next lane. As this person blew by me about 75 miles an hour, they went off the road, and they impacted the end of an attenuator head on. Airbags deployed. Their front fender went flying across my windshield about 50 feet in front of me at 55 miles an hour. If I hadn't been aware of a possible situation, I could have been my normal self, going the speed limit or a few miles an hour over, going home excited for a Friday night weekend, but I did not. And I owe myself just being aware, even on my personal business, that I saw something, I predicted it to happen. Most of the time they don't happen, but this time it did. So you always have to have your head on a swivel these days, whether it's at work or in your personal lives. So situational awareness is being aware of what happening around you in terms of where you are, where you're supposed to be, and whether anyone or anything around you poses a threat to your health and safety. I recognize this person as being a threat to my safety, and I needed to get in a safer area. And that's why I pulled over and I let this reckless person do what they needed to do. So at all times, you need to be aware of construction activities and traffic taking place around you. If there's equipment operating in the area, make sure you keep an eye on it. If you need to approach an equipment operator, make sure you make eye contact before you approach this equipment. Always be aware of your position. Stay out of the equipment swing radius. Stay behind positive temporary barrier if you can, guide rail, etc. An orange traffic cone or drum is a visual protection only. They delineate where traffic is kept away from, but provides no physical protection. Observe your surroundings when conditions change. This is important to remember, and you'll hear about it again. Don't let your cell phone become a distraction to the situation at hand. Where is your clear zone? Do you have one? If an errant vehicle comes in the path of the construction zone, where are you going to go to? So, this goes for flaggers. Sometimes I see flaggers standing on a bridge. Are they going to jump off the bridge? That's not a good place for the flagger to be stationed. Nor should they have a car parked right next to them, because what are they going to do? Jump right through the windshield like Dukes of Hazzard? I don't think so. So, think about these things. This is a big one that's it's very lengthy. Safety and health requirements, 10705 and work zone traffic control 619. They are both lengthy spec sections that both tie into safety and are very important to understand and apply, so we can all go home to our families at the end of the day in every work shift. Don't get into a habit of glossing these sections over. If your projects are so busy during the season, the department encourages and recommends yearly spending time each winter season to refresh your knowledge and prepare for the next season. I was just made aware that all 619 standard sheets are in the process of main office updates, and it will be available by the end of July sometime. Hopefully not any further, but it could be. There may be a few new 690 standard sheets issued as well. I just want to make that note that those are coming. So I'm sure you'll hear about it when I hear about it. So again, safety and health requirements 10705. It's high visibility. As some of you probably can see, I'm wearing a high vis jacket. It's called high vis for a reason, so you can be seen and easily recognized. If your high visibility apparel becomes soiled or damaged, especially the reflectivity, immediately clean it or replace it. Vests, Class 2 vests are required on all projects. We typically hand out Class 2 in Region 3. We do have a few they call Class 3 sleeveless vests, which are basically sleeved shirts, which are recommended for nighttime operation. But if you wear your Class 2 vest with gaiters around your shins, they will fulfill the Class 3 fulfillment for nighttime operations. Again, nighttime operations only requires Class 2, but it's recommended to wear Class 3. Halos. This is an extra personal light used in the top of hard hats for nighttime operations, and it's usually used in conjunction with balloon lighting. People have used them without balloon lighting. So here in Region 3, if there's a need, we have some available for sign out. Work zone traffic control, channelizing devices. The contractor should use channeling devices to physically separate traffic from portions of the roadway not available for travel, to separate traffic from hazards adjacent to the roadway, separate opposing or adjacent travel lanes to define the intended travel path for vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians. Examine your work zones. Do channelizing devices, cones, drums, vertical panels have proper spacing? Are they in good condition? Are they clean? Do they have proper reflective stripes on them? Tapers. I do a lot of inspections throughout the season, and it's kind of a hit or miss on laying tapers out properly, especially the length of them. Short and abrupt. It's not the best way to go about things. That it's not the right way to set out a taper. You don't start a taper right as you come off a hill or over a hill. You need clearly advance warning. So if you have any of these obstructions, your taper may be longer than what your standard sheet shows. The contractor shall use drums, oversized vertical panels, or Type 2 construction barricades to delineate tapers. The contractor may also use standard cones, tall cones, extra tall cones, and vertical panels for short-term work zones during daylight hours only. Again, check to make sure the length of the channelized tapers is adequate in accordance with the work zone traffic control plans or the terrain at hand. Like I said, that sometimes these standard sheets don't see the length of a hill or the limited site that you see. So these things have to be adjusted. And then there's more literature you could read about below. Backing policy, spotter. This is another topic that I have a personal story to share. About 1.5 years ago, I was part of an investigation team for a single fatality that involved backing operations. I never saw a construction project with 40 men and women gathered in small groups in silence with a white sheet covering someone on a newly paved road. It's not something you want to be a part of on any level, believe me. With that said, the first sentence, New York State DOT has zero tolerance for backing incidents. New York State DOT policy views all backing accidents as preventable. Any operator found in violation with equipment procedures will be removed from the project immediately and will not be allowed to work on any department projects for a minimum of 1 year. Construction vehicles, certain vehicles need certain things on them. I don't want to bore you to death, but basically they need to have working alarms, reflectivity, amber lights, beacon lights working and not obstructed. And those beacon lights should be seen at all angles. So, if they have a bunch of equipment or materials, it's covering their beacon light. We need to have them store those materials or have another avenue to deliver them. Do not approach a moving vehicle or equipment without establishing eye contact or communication with the operator first. Give these operators plenty of safe distance to do their work and where you can be seen. Next subject or topic is the electronic portable devices and cell phones. Personally, this topic disgusts me on unsafe behavior you see every day, days off, at work, driving to and from work, walking the streets. To me, using these devices unsafely while operating a vehicle or even walking the streets is becoming more deadly than drinking and driving. The sad thing is it's not measurable like drunk drivers, like you can get a blood test or a breathalyzer. It's only measurable if the driver admits to the wrongdoing, which is not likely. So the numbers you may see for deaths or distracted drivers, they call it, I believe the numbers are higher than what's being reported. And my eyes tell me that. I see it every day. And I bet you every one of you see it too. So we got to lead by example here. We got to educate future, present, our kids. Policies for electronic portable devices and cell phones shall be provided by your employers. Handheld portable communication devices shall not be used on public highways during the operation of vehicles or equipment while in state business. This includes vehicles, equipment owned and leased by the state, provided by contractors, and our personal vehicles used for state business. Vehicle operators may use hands-free units while the vehicle is moving, except in active highway work zones. If a hands-free unit is not used, employees must park in a safe, legal location to initiate and to respond to calls and messages. That goes with personal devices. They shall not be using personal devices with earphones or earbuds while working in the fields. These, one of your senses is your hearing. So sometimes you hear an alarm go off, a backing alarm off, and that alerts you. And if you have earbuds or earphones and you can't recognize any of these sounds around you, so you're putting yourself at risk. So if you see them being used on your construction site, you got to educate the user not to use them. Today's technology could be your best friend or your worst nightmare. Multitasking is a myth, and believing you can multitask with electronic portable device, cell phone while driving or at work on a construction site is not realistic. Your eyes are your best defense when it comes to safety if they are not distracted on the screen. So if they are distracted on the screen, you don't have the best defense for safety, taking it away from yourself. Create good, safe habits. Put yourself in a safe location or set a time that is safe to use these devices. Like I said, parking lot, field office, behind barrier, guardrail, away from hazards. Remember, New York State DOT has no tolerance for unsafe behavior for these devices on their construction projects. Let's change this unsafe behavior and lead by example. It can save lives. Fall protection. This is a #1 accident in construction and fatalities in construction. I can bore you with a bunch of definitions here, but there's really just two things you really need to just be asking yourself. Your eyes will tell you that. Are you working at an unsafe elevation? Are you working at an elevation more than 6 feet? Are there hazards below that you can fall into that you need to be protected, even though you're not 6 feet above them? The answer is you should wear fall protection when these arise. So at least 6 feet or more, you need to be tied off. What about preventing suspension trauma? This is something that is overlooked by some. basically, if you end up falling and you're tied off on a lanyard harness and you're hanging there, you got about 10 minutes to be rescued, being brought down. Otherwise, suspension trauma or blood will be cut off or limited to your heart and your brain. And you might not have that long to live. So the contractor must have a personal fall arrest system rescue plan in place, ready, available, and put into action. An e.g. ladder, an aerial lift nearby, other means, something that's working. They got 10 minutes. So if you're going to be up there above heights and it's going to be more than 10 minutes for somebody to rescue, you need to make the contractor aware of that and maybe have them move the man lift or the ladder or something else in the vicinity where people can be rescued. We're speaking about the number one fatality in construction. So please don't take this lightly. Confined spaces. I got another personal story of a fatality that concerns confined spaces. And it was before I became an engineer. It was while I was in college. My college roommate's dad, who was a Marine, he was a volunteer firefighter and an active father, who died on Killington Ski Mountain due to a confined space incident. Knowing that he was a Marine, a firefighter, and an active skier, you can probably picture this guy was in really good shape and really knew his stuff, but I don't know what procedures they were following, but it's obvious they cut some corners or did not know it was a confined space. But they had 3 water tanks buried on the ski mountain that make snow, and they had 3 water tanks to inspect. He did 2 of them on a Friday night with a snorkel and a mask that were half filled with water. So when he came up, he was breathing the oxygen in the remaining space. And he came out of the second tank and he asked the guys if they wanted to spend a little bit more time on Friday rather than coming back on Saturday and disrupting their family plans. And they all agreed to get the last one done. And when he went into the last one, he never came out alive. It was found that the air that he was breathing was deficient in oxygen. So I ended up going with a few people from college, from Northeastern and Boston, all the way up to Vermont. And my that roommate of mine graduated with 45 people from high school. So it was a very, very, very small town. I saw over 2,000 people at this funeral. This guy was, he had an impact on a lot of people. He was well liked by a lot of others. And it was just sad that a guy like this took his life and not knowing the dangers he was getting into. So here we go with confined spaces. A confined space is identified as a space that meets all 3 of the following properties. It's large enough and so configured that an employee can bodily enter and perform assigned work. Has limited or restricted means for entry or exit. For example, box girders, trenches, drainage pipes, DI manholes, winter concrete enclosures, and tanks are spaces that may have limited means of entry. It's not designed for continuous employee occupancy. Can you identify confined spaces? These can change without warning and can be silent and deadly. Before any individual can enter confined spaces, they shall each be fully trained in confined space entry. This is the first step in preventing injury. The second step is that the contractor, like fall protection, must have a confined space rescue and medical service plan that is in place and on site that is immediately available prior to entry, which includes trained and equipped rescue personnel and emergency medical services. Did you know that most fire departments, especially volunteers, do not engage in this type of rescue due to them not being trained or properly equipped and not immediately available on site? It's kind of like NASCAR. They pay a bunch of ambulance services to sit there and they watch a race. If there's no accidents, they got nothing to do. If there's an accident, they're deployed and they're immediately available. It's kind of like what this is. So think of it as NASCAR. You need to have those services available. Non-confined spaces can become confined spaces if conditions change, like using a gasoline demo saw without proper ventilation. This was an incident that happened in our region a couple of years ago. We had a DI for the Teal Beach project that was as part of getting the I-90 project through Syracuse. That happened a couple of years ago. The worker was asked to go down into the DI with the new DI pipes and trim off the pipes flush with the DI. He brought in a demo saw and then started it right up, and he started breathing carbon monoxide, and he felt dizzy. Somebody noticed, they pulled him out just in time, and he lived to see another day. So again, confined spaces or non-confined spaces can become a confined space if the conditions change. Identifying confined spaces or potential confined spaces can save someone's life. Know how to identify these areas and educate others before they enter. Silica. Do you know what silica is and how to protect yourself? Silica is found in a variety of materials and is a compound of sand, stone, rock, concrete, block, and mortar. And breathing its dust can cause serious respiratory problems and could lead to death. There is no cure. Your contractor's first approach to comply with OSHA's new standard is to utilize specific exposure controls, methods, engineering, and work practices controls from the OSHA Table 1. For example, equipment with a vacuum or applied water to remove or minimize the silica dust hazard. The second approach for the contractor would be to utilize a respiratory protection plan for exposed workers and monitoring and for the public. Work sites near public areas and active sidewalks are a major concern of silica dust clouds if silica dust clouds are present. We, as construction inspectors, we observe, guide, and document the contractor's work, and the contractor is one that does the actual labor work. Therefore, you must avoid exposure to dust, vapors, fumes, and must stay away from silica dust operations. If inspectors can see it, meaning a cloud of dust from, say, chipping concrete or saw cutting concrete, you can feel it or you touch it, they are too close. Stay upwind, breathe smart, or get protected. I can't say enough about this. Contractors generally have been doing a great job. It's just those little intermittent jobs. They may be chipping away for 10 or 15 minutes. You know, a bucket of water can be all you need. Just keep pouring it on or keeping the dust down. And just be aware where the wind is blowing. If it's around a school, public area, we need to really button these things down. Open excavations and trenches. Again, excavation trenches can become a confined space. You know, there are times where a trench gets pretty deep, and even with a protected box, you have gases sometimes that leak out of the soil that are heavier than oxygen, and they seem to settle at the bottom of the trench. And if there's a worker there and he's not breathing the full oxygen level that he's supposed to, they become dizzy and orientated and pass out. So these trenches need to be monitored and treated like confined spaces, especially when conditions change, like maybe a lot of rain or drought. The depth has changed recently. You know, it's over on the other side of the mountain where there's no wind blowing into, that sort of thing. So numbers to remember for these. There's 4 numbers I like to remember when it comes to this. It's 2, 4, 5, and 25. So 2, if you multiply it by itself, you get 4. You take 5, multiply it by itself, you get 25. So that's a pretty easy way for me to remember these 4 numbers. So 2 represents stay away from excavated trenches at least 2 feet or more if possible. You don't need to be standing on the edge. 4 represents trenches 4 feet or deep that require a ladder. 5 represents trenches 5 feet or deep that require a trench box, other forms of cave-in preventabilities. And 25 represents that ladders need to be spaced at every 25 feet for entry and exit, ingress or egress. A competent person provided by the contractors is required to inspect all excavations and must prevent persons from entering unsafe excavations. They also were required to inspect soil conditions as things change, like maybe after a rainstorm or during a drought. Remember, as construction inspectors, we observe, guide, and document the contractor's work mostly from a safe distance away. So stay away from the edges of trenches and excavated areas. Workplace violence, harassment. Article 2, Section 27B of the New York State Labor Law and Title 12, NYCRR Section 800.6. New York State has 0 tolerance for workplace violence and harassment of any kind and must be reported to your supervisor EIC immediately. Workplace is defined as any location away from an employee's resident, permanent or temporary, where an employee performs any work-related duty during his or her employment. Workplace violence is defined as any physical assault or act of aggressive behavior occurring where a public employee performs any work-related duty during his or her employment. Incidents include, but are not limited to, the following, A through F here. So I'll let you guys read that. If workplace violence happened on a construction project, including the field offices, which I have not had any reported, thank God. A CIR, which stands for Construction Incident Report, is required to be submitted by the New York State DOT Project Field Office. Accident, also known as nowadays as incident reporting. Nobody likes to get involved or gather info for reporting incidents, but be prepared to act if it is safe to do so. There's a lot of people that get impacted or get involved when reporting an accident. Not only does it get submitted to the region, it gets submitted to main office, and then, sometimes it's used in court and goes beyond further, and things can kind of linger for a little while. So providing as much information at the time it happens will make it easier for all those that it impacts as this report gets submitted. You are required by the department to report all incidents on your construction project that either involve construction or the traveling public to your EIC so they can document and submit using the CIR program. Your first and last work zone traffic control signs. All traffic incidents that occur between them or within your project limits are required to be reported within 24 hours to your EIC, including occurring after work hours within your contract limits. That will aid with local authorities documenting property damage and for successful recovery processes. So you might have a stretch of road that you're paving for 10 miles. You're only set up for 1 mile or 2 miles of paving. You're still responsible to report any known incidents that occur within your project limits, especially the ones that are damaging the guide railing, posts, signs, delineators, any of that stuff. So it's important to get in the habit to have someone drive your project right when they get there. Just make sure nothing was knocked down overnight or damaged. And if it was, you can gather as much information as you can, take a photo, get it in the hands of the EIC, and then they could basically be dealing with your regional construction safety coordinator. So again, try to get it reported to your EIC within 24 hours. I would recommend reporting it as soon as you know it. The police, get to know your New York State Police Headquarters number for the troop or for the troops that cover your county or counties that you're working. Calling 911 is not always the best and most efficient to respond and investigate your scene. If it requires immediate medical emergency or there appears to be possible imminent violence or danger, call 911. When police arrive, introduce yourself, document officer's name, and ask them to provide a police accident reference number. That will be helpful to include as supporting documentation to the CIR. This reference number, they may not be able to give you, say, an MV-104A form, which is the official accident report that usually has to be signed by the police supervisor. Sometimes it takes over 2 weeks for them to review and sign. So this reference to the accident report number is something that we can call back to the state or local police, provide them with, and they can use it as a search number in their database to pull up the MV-104. They're not going to be able to search for a red car that was speeding on I-81 on this date. A license plate they might be able to search, but the best thing to do is try to get that accident reference report number. You can also follow with them a day later and try to get it. Like I said, it's very helpful to include that in the CIRs, especially if more people need to get their eyes and ears on information in a timely manner. Witnesses. All are encouraged to provide all necessary details in writing that can be done ranging from an email to a signed napkin. It just needs to be legible. So if you got a laborer there and he was a witness to something, you may be a little nervous to write something down or, doesn't have good penmanship, but you can help them out. Supply them a napkin or a piece of paper. You could take a picture of the napkin, set it into your project office. That's basically what we're looking for. So an email with photos, that's great too. So the next one is photos. Pictures are like 1,000 words. Some incidents are really good about sending at least 1 or 2 photos. It kind of tells a lot. Taking pictures is highly encouraged. That will be helpful to include also as supporting documentation for the CIR. Primarily, the photos we're looking for are for property damage, site layout, maybe your work zone traffic control layout, equipment or vehicles involved, including license plates. So if you do take multiple photos, just beware of sharing photos of maybe someone's face in the photo. Just beware that hold close to the vest and only share with the appropriate people. The last subject here is COVID-19. I'm sure a lot of you have heard a lot. I have everything from reviewing contractors' COVID-19 supplemental safety and health plans to cover COVID-19. But here it is again in a nutshell, as there's so much guidance out there. All employers and New York State employees, including seasonal, are required to comply with COVID-19 guidance and procedures. Reporting symptomatic employee self. Basically, you should contact your immediate supervisor, go home, and call the New York State DOH COVID-19 hotline at 888-364-3065 for further guidance. And that's per the State of New York Executive Chamber memo that was issued on March 15th, 2020. Masks or face coverings are required if social distancing is unable to maintain 6 feet or less, or when not maintaining. Employees are required to provide employees with masks. We here in Region 3, like probably all the other regions, we have plenty of masks. So if you need to replace some of these, just please contact your region, your or myself, and we'll try to get the masks to you as soon as we can. Enhanced cleaning schedule. New York State has an enhanced cleaning schedule for the department-owned and occupied facilities and vehicles. New York State DOT provides all necessary cleaning supplies to its employees. For example, hand sanitizers, wipes. All employees are responsible for cleaning their hands frequently as needed and shared used areas daily, including your own workspace and equipment and state vehicles, most touch surfaces, like the steering wheel, door handle, controls, etc. If you don't want to wear a mask, avoid close contact with others. Stay 6 feet apart or more, and utilize telephone, conference calls, emails, and video conferencing as much as possible. Remember, expect everybody to have a camera these days. And remember the perception that this photo might be showing if somebody happens to snap a picture. And if the regions or the state receive complaints for non-compliance due to COVID-19, it gives reason for a visit and expect a visit. Main office has asked that we kind of follow up more on our projects and how our projects are doing. So they're not taking this lightly. So again, if the state or region receives complaints, it's going to give reason to send out a site visit. There's 3 literatures down below that can be found that basically support everything on the slide. So I encourage everybody. That ends the topic of discussions. I guess I can open it up to any questions or concerns. Maybe somebody has a story to tell. Stories, people like stories. So I encourage anybody that has a good story to share it.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So right now, everyone is still muted. But if somebody does have something they want to share vocally, we can unmute that person. I guess we'll have you raise your hand so we can see you, because I don't want to unmute everybody. There's just too many people. But before, I just want to say a couple things too. Number one, add on to the COVID-19. So as inspectors out in the field, if you see contractor forces not following these rules, it's the equivalent of not wearing any other personal protective equipment. If you see, same as not wearing a hard hat. So when you see 2 guys close together within 6 feet not wearing masks, you need to say something. They have to follow the rules, just like wearing a hard hat, just like wearing a safety vest, and the other safety apparel. The COVID mask guidelines should be treated the same. I know we're in the downhill end of this pandemic, hopefully, but until the rules change, the rules are what they are, just as he stated that last slide. And one other thing, I just wanted to touch on that accident versus incident a little bit. So you're going to be seeing accident, not that term not being used at all. In the future, we really are moving away from that totally, and it's going to be replaced with incident, just like he said. The reason for that is that accident kind of infers that it was preventable, where most of our time, our stuff is totally preventable. That's why it's an incident. Just a little background on why we're replacing accident with incident.
Mark?
Yes.
One other thing that sometimes people have a tendency to refer to them as accidents because the MV-104A form that the police fill out has it labeled as an accident report, and they have not adopted to changing to incidents because of their reasonings, and I'm sure they're valid reasonings, but just to keep that in mind. If you refer to a police incident report, I know what you're talking about, and probably the reader does above you as well. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. Yep. Thanks. So it looks like there are a few questions over here in the chat now.
You want me to still share my screen, Mark?
Yeah, that's fine. But so here's something I don't know. Someone's asking about harness safety. If you're working, in height, some where harnesses are required, like on a bridge or whatever. Do you Is that something that they're asking if that's still something that's given every few years? Is that something the department offers? I guess is what they're asking. Are you aware of that?
Training on on fitting it
I'm not really sure. They just said
or how to
I'm
wear
taking a
it.
class about harness safety. I'm not aware. So,
Well, this does cover harness safety, so that link should provide you additional training. And if somebody is not sure and if a harness or the harness it would not fit their body correctly, or if they wondering if it's snug enough or too tight, I would recommend for them to see their regional safety coordinator for guidance. Also, there's a lot of people in the field that have worn these before that also should be able to provide guidance. So, network with everybody out there. Not necessarily I might be your best voice to go to or immediately available. It could be the guy standing right next to you that's had tons of experience, and why not strike up a conversation and ask him a little bit more about it.
okay.
But I do know that when you put the straps around your legs and around your inner thigh, that they should be they should be snug. You should be able to fit your hand. You should be able to feel the tightness of the straps between your leg and your hand. If you can't put your hand between them, it's probably too tight. You can easily put your whole arm in there. It's obviously too loose. So it's important that these things, sometimes they can loosen up if you don't have the belt buckle type straps. So you got to make sure those things are maintaining a snug fit. And only clip off to designated clip off points. A railing on a aerial lift is not a designated anchor point. There are designated points on the man lift itself. They should be labeled, and I believe it should. I think it's at least 5,000 pounds they should be designed for. So refrain from clipping off to the railings when you're using your lanyards and harnesses. But there's a lot of information on this, and without knowing the specifics of the question or for the training, I would seek your regional construction safety coordinator on additional guidance on harness training.
Okay, thanks. So the next question is about high-vis gators. They're asking if that's something the department supplies.
Yes, I guess we in Region 3, we've gone to a lot of nighttime operation paving projects, especially along I-81. And I think they're only like 12 or 15 bucks for a pair. That would be two of them. So they're a little bit cheaper than the vest. They do get soiled a little easier because they're below the ground from, whether it's wet or muddy. But if your region has the access to get them, and a good reason that you need them, I wouldn't see any reason why they wouldn't be able to supply them for you. So you can check with your regional construction safety coordinator, and if they've never purchased them, have them reach out to me in Region 3.
This happens to be one of your region's people, so they can reach out to you, I guess.
Yeah. We don't buy a whole lot of them because we don't want to supply 65 inspectors with vests and gaiters, and maybe only 10 people that are working at night. So we only get half a dozen to a dozen a year. So anybody that comes out and asks me for a halo, and because they're going to nighttime inspection, I also offer them gaiters. So it's not like I'm secretly not trying to let anybody know that we have them, but it's more of a specialty need for nighttime operators. And I'm sure that in the future we might be going to Class 3 all the time. I don't know.
And someone else is asking if texts are acceptable for incident witnesses to deliver a statement or information.
Absolutely. You could take a screenshot of a text. You could if you take a screenshot, you can send it in an email, and you can verify that this was his witness statement. And if you get a reply back from that person with that screenshot of the photo, that would probably seal the deal.
Right, perfect. Here's another one. It's not really a question. It's somebody's, it's a statement of what they do. So Region 4 is stating that their EIC and inspectors will advise the contractors when they're not following the health and safety plans related to COVID. And then if repeat offenses, a letter will be sent to the contractor requesting corrective action. So that, yeah, that is exactly the way that should be handled.
Yeah.
Just like any other corrective action. It should be treated no differently.
Yeah, the main thing is here, let me go back up to my slides. I could, that's the outcomes here. Recognize impacts and consequences of unsafe practices. Again, I mentioned everybody's got a camera, okay? If you're doing something you know is not by the rules and regulations, are you risking the impact? Are you risking the consequences? Do you want to be told? Do you want to be brought in? Do you want to be consulted? Do you want this stuff to happen? If so, it's gonna. You know, if you want to not be part of that, then follow the practices. Follow safe practices. That's basically it. So my message to them is make sure they understand impacts and consequences if they don't follow the rules. Like I said, if we get complaints, one person complains, I'm wearing my mask, nobody else is, or having lunch, or they're going out, I see them leaving, they're walking through the door, they take their masks off, they're shoulder to shoulder, walk farther apart. Don't give a reason for somebody to snap a photo. We're in a pretty good safe here being inspectors. We have more control over that than say our laborers, but it's how you deliver the message, I think, to get a good response from the contractor. Like I had a contractor one time, I came out, this was about a month and a half ago. I was on site, I had my mask, not on because I was alone. I had it around my wrist, and the superintendent was on the job, and he was probably wondering, who was this guy showing up on his job? I never met him before. And he gets out of his truck and he comes walking over to me and says, excuse me. I says, do you want me to put on my mask? And he's like, no. I said, okay, I don't like to wear these masks. So if we could stay 6 feet apart, that'd be great. And basically, I got a very good response from it. I wasn't saying like, don't get any closer, we're going to have to put on our masks. It's how you deliver that. It's like, I took it into account for me. It says, do you want me to put on my mask? Because you're getting closer. So that basically is a message. It's like, think about how positive, make a spin on telling somebody, hey, spread apart, do the right thing. Because if you want to get close, you're going to have to put our masks on.
So,
hopefully that helps.
Yeah. The next question somebody had is, what's the policy for providing guide rails, handrail systems on trenching over 5 feet in depth with trench boxes?
I don't know. I can find out. I would basically recommend to find out those details through your regional construction safety coordinator, or there might be information on the link below on the excavation and trenches. Like I said, these links that are provided on each slide, some of these bring you a document that's like 10 pages long. So we don't have time, and I'm sure I would bore everybody to death if I went over every single one of those. That way I kind of highlighted the areas, and then I left it to the trainee to direct them to the link for further information. So if they have further questions after reading that document, I would recommend that they reach out to the regional construction safety coordinator.
We have another one. It's not really a question. It's more of a guy just kind of sharing an incident that he had. I'm wondering if I just asked him if he wants me to unmute him so we can share it with everyone, or if he just wants me to kind of read what he wrote. I'm waiting for him to get back to me.
Okay.
So Michael Joseph I don't know. If you want to send me a private chat message, if you want me to share that, if you want me to unmute you. Okay, I'll just read what he wrote. So what he's sharing an issue that he had an incident. He said recently they had a worker that fell through a hole in the deck that was created for construction access. They are positioning the I-beam, and then the iron worker rushed to help another who was having issues with the beam. The worker fell off the bridge approximately 18 feet to the parkway below. The hole was not protected when the incident occurred. And he says this was on a local project, not an NYSDOT project, but just to show you how serious just a little lack of following safety guidelines. This is what this was what the end result can be.
Yeah, not knowing more about the detail, what comes to light for me is, holes do need to be protected with rails, barricades. But it seems to me, my understanding is maybe they needed the hole for access for a piece of material. So they might have had to take the rails down to get this material through. I don't know. But this comes down to situational awareness for me. If they're unprotecting a hole because they need to get something in there, you got to know where you should and where you should not be. You shouldn't be near that hole. And if you are, how are you going to be protected from falling through? So, not knowing much about it, I would say this lands on situational awareness.
All right, any other questions? We still got half an hour. I mean, we could also go over if necessary, but we definitely have a half hour that was scheduled. So feel free to shoot any questions our way.
While we're waiting for questions, some of you may have seen that we're trying to implement a design item in our contract plans for work zone cameras and work zone camera signs, basically for flagging operations, long stretches of roadways with not a lot of entrances to like residential areas and businesses. And it's basically we're trying to change the behavior of drivers through our work zones. When people know they got a camera on them, they tend to change their behavior really quickly. So having these cameras and signs out there, we might start to see a better behavior through our work zones. But as soon as they get through the work zone, it's like the green flag in NASCAR. They're back to the races. So, but it's meant to change the behavior, and hopefully we'll see a lot of data come through with this in a positive way.
Someone else wants if you could talk a little bit about having spotters, like particularly for and not necessarily for backing. This one's like for a concrete pump truck. Especially if they're near like high voltage lines or something like that. That's happened before where they're unaware or for whatever reason the spotter's not there, and then people get electrocuted. So I don't know if somebody wants to mention that a little bit. If you could talk about that, maybe.
Yeah, I would say this has to do with lack of planning or poor planning. If you're going to be within 10 feet of a high voltage line, you need to have that piece of equipment or voltage line protected or taken out of service temporarily. So you need to recognize these hazards before you go about your tasks. You discuss these during meetings, weekly meetings or whatever about your 2-week schedule looking out there. So, sometimes having these utilities respond, it's kind of a challenge. So the best thing to do is talk about them early, contact the people ahead of time, and you have daily safety topic meetings or weekly, a contractor does. This would be a good topic before you start. If there's a situation where it's going to be a tight squeeze, are we going to need 2 more spotters? Are we just going to need 1? Is everybody educated? Is everybody aware of like how we're going to perform this task when we're in this tight spot? That includes the drivers. That includes everybody. So I can't speak enough about bringing up something in a meeting. Sometimes is very useful. It's like the pre-paving meetings, the pre-concrete meetings. Ask the contractor. What are you going to do on a Friday afternoon if your concrete is rejected, and then let him tell you what his plan is. Well, we'll go ahead and pour with risk, but and then you basically say if they fail the cylinder tests or any of those strength tests that you're going to be at risk. You're going to have to pull it out. You don't have that argument on site at 4 o'clock on a Friday. Well, the spec says this. Well, no, you're supposed to have those pre-planning. So that to me would be something your competent person, your contractor or your superintendent should bring to the table and for discussion and to address it through a tailgate safety.
So the next question, I could probably answer most of this one. They're asking if it's possible to get more police presence in our work zones, or will cameras become more prevalent in the future? The police presence, probably not possible to get more. You have to prioritize. Each region has somebody that handles that. They have to put a request in when they want police service. It's not unlimited, and I don't see that us getting any more police presence anytime soon. Unfortunately, I know some states require a police presence on every job site, but New York is not like that. And the second question, cameras are probably absolutely going to be more common in the future. Do you want to add to that at all, Tom?
No, people have cameras people have cameras on their phones. It's like almost everybody has one nowadays. And I know that they're going to be, these signal loops are going to be doing away with, and they're going to be implementing cameras up there to monitor traffic and size of vehicles crossing the area and traffic counts and all that good stuff. And they're not supposed to be used, but if you're on camera, it's being recorded, and if it gets into the right or the wrong hands, it could possibly be used against you. So we definitely, if you're doing the right thing, you shouldn't be worried about it.
I think the cameras she's referring to are like the work zone cameras.
Well, I think the idea behind is people in other states or drivers change their behavior when they see a cop in a work zone or police in a work zone. And now, New York doesn't have that, but we have that Operation Hard Hat, which has been doing great things the last 2 years, and it's going to continue this year.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think it's one way to replace a police officer with camera lines and cameras. I think that has just much of effect to change the behavior as having a police on site. But the jury's still out. We haven't got enough data on it. They do recognize that people tend to hit their brake lights or slow down through traffic zones when they do see these signs at a camera and they actually see the camera. Maybe they see that blinking red light that it's on. I don't know. But ever since these smartphones came out, I expect cameras everywhere. So I'm glad to see them in place on our work zones, that's for sure. And our Operation Hard Hat. Again, we have limited services for our police to be out there for Operation Hard Hat, but they're trying to go on the projects that maybe have the supporting data for it. Maybe there's reoccurring accidents or known speeders. It's gotten out of control, and it might be a good spot for something, but something's going to be taking place for 1 or 2 days and not long term. It might not be the best. I'm not sure, but we're trying. I think we can do our part by educating everybody and showing people what we do and not our opinions on things. Like, I talk to my kids about phone usage in the car, about there's no place for it other than your pocket. And if you need to access it, have your co-pilot do it. There's no reason why you need to do it. Nothing is more important than getting out of your vehicle safely. So, we need to educate at home, because that's basically where our kids become adults and they have good habits because they were taught well, or they have bad habits because they weren't taught.
I just want to add too, I do know that as an agency, the executives they're taking any kind of work zone violation, speeding, anything seriously. They're trying to not let anyone off the hook at all. They want any kind of incident that happens, whether it's violence or speeding or anything. They want to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law, and they're really pushing that and supporting it.
Yep.
So the executives are taking this stuff very seriously.
And anybody that has been by active traffic on a construction site, I believe that they are 100% with you on that. And if you've never experienced it and feel differently, once you do experience it, you'll probably have a change of opinion, because it's an important industry that we have, construction. It's needed, but it's also very dangerous if you're not educated and willing to learn with others, and not act like a blind eye about certain things. It's a culture. We need to change the culture.
Yes. So next question, someone's asking if the NYSDOT keeps track of the OSHA 10 classes available within each region. I would say absolutely we do that. Ideally, we want everybody in construction to have their OSHA 10, and I think we're probably close to having everybody have it, but I don't think we're 100%.
This has been an ongoing challenge here in Region 3. A couple of years ago, I think we got everybody trained over 2 years. It was in class. And I think that's what the intention of this training is, especially for like TCIs or people that are just hired and they may not get the OSHA 10 training a few days down the road, or a couple of months, or even next year. This exposes them to general safety topics, and it brings awareness that not just what's on the slides, but what's being talked about in these slides about communicating, network with others, talking about situations, just learning as you go. Like, where should I be standing? Just talk to these people. Everybody has a story on the job. And this day and age, I mean, it's even in my household, it's hard to have conversations with people because people like to talk on text or, communicate. And, those real live verbal discussions are very valuable for, time you're just watching somebody, you're with your experienced inspector there, you're watching them, you're talking about the task that's going on, but there's a lot of downtime in between. Strike up a conversation about safety if you're unsure about a lot of things. We haven't had any incidents with our TCIs, but I wanted to try to promote awareness to safety issues and try to limit and try to educate my people before things happen. I think we've done pretty good in our region for the last couple of years, talking to our TCIs as they come on board without OSHA 10. And this is going to be a new level of education for them. Like I said, it doesn't replace the OSHA 10, this training, but it gives awareness to people that are going to be put on our projects that may not have the credentials of the OSHA 10 right away. I know all of our contractors shall be OSHA 10 certified prior to starting work, and usually the OSHA 10 cards are usually submitted upon the first payroll to the EIC. So I do have a few people in my region I do need to get trained, and it's challenging. If we had an online class available or on Slims, it would be much easy, but there's debate whether or not online classes are as effective as in-class training. So the jury's still out, but if you want to be OSHA trained, we can get you OSHA trained.
Yeah, we were trying to work with our Workforce Learning Development Bureau to get some kind of a reasonably priced OSHA 10 training available for everyone. This was going back probably a year or more ago, and we need to revisit that because I don't think anything was ever created. Well, I know that's something we're working on, just trying to get, affordable training available for OSHA 10 for everyone. That seems to be
Yeah.
one of the sticking points is the cost sometimes, but
Yeah. Now, we also networked with adjacent regions when we did it because we did like say 5 people that didn't get trained the year before, and then during I think it was the RCE meetings, they were networking like they're supposed to. And all of a sudden, Region 5 supplied me with 5 other candidates because I think there was like a minimum amount of candidates for the trainer to come in and train the class. So, regardless if it was 5 or 10 people, we were going to pay for 10. So, we opened it up to other regions. So, that's another way I think that people probably can get trained is not just allow it to just the regions, but open it up to adjacent regions where the travel is not as extensive. So you don't want someone traveling from Buffalo to Albany, but Rochester, Syracuse might not be bad.
yeah, something where you don't have to do an overnight travel. Exactly.
Right. So I try to keep my RCE abrupt or just abreast of any training that's coming forward, and I'll try to bring it up to his attention to discuss it with other regions if other people feel they need to get people trained. But he usually does a pretty good job discussing other things.
Like I said, I don't know off the top of my head what the percentage is. I do know that we want everyone in construction to have it. If I had to guess, I'm going to say it's 90% or above that have it. I mean, I don't know that for sure. I do know, isn't it true, Tom? Like a lot of the new inspectors or new engineers coming out of college might have already got OSHA 10 in college. Have you seen that?
No.
No?
I do know the OSHA 10, once you're certified, it's good for life. And the only thing is it expires is if you lose the card. So when you get it, make sure you make a copy of it. I always make a copy and then I send it to the regional trainer. But you can have an OSHA 10 card for 10 years and you could be exposed to certain hazards on a certain project. All of a sudden you get put on a different project with the hazard that you were trained in 10 years ago, but you're like scratching your head. This is what this is for. This is something that you can go back through this training, and it's going to highlight those areas that maybe it's been a while since you've been exposed through OSHA 10. And there's literature out there to give you what you need to know. So I very, very highly recommend that this training gets used annually, especially during the off season, when our projects, our guys and girls are not actively on our projects and maybe sitting in a field office, and to become that leader and say, hey, I know so and so that hasn't done any of this work. He's new to me. Maybe I need to share this with him. We all need to turn a network together. And basically, I found it's how you present it to people. It's not, and just be careful how you say it. And as long as you say it professionally, people are usually open to take the training.
All right. So here's an interesting question. Someone's asking, in cases where you, as the inspector, notice an immediate threat to someone's safety, they're asking, is it acceptable to yell out and warn that person, whether it's a contractor, employee, or whoever? Or, the thought is sometimes it might startle them and or upset them, but this person's thinking that it's in their best interest. Well, they're just wondering, how would you handle that?
Obviously, there's a lot that goes through your mind. My first reaction probably would, you do need to get their attention in a safe manner. You don't want to be yelling at somebody if they're on a tightrope, or a golfer making a 15-foot putt shot, So I guess it's just a reaction you have. I guess it would probably come natural. If something's in immediate danger, do what you can without putting yourself at danger. First of all, recognize the situation. I personally would try to get their attention or go through their immediate supervisor. And then, I would say if you did something like that, you need to follow up and express why you behaved the way you did, because you thought it was an immediate danger. Don't take it personally. I was just trying to get your attention.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any problem in trying to get someone's attention. I wouldn't worry about the.
So I got a story to share on this one. Last year I was independently alone doing my work zone inspections in Region 3. I was traveling down I-81 and I noticed a work zone setup and not a location that I was expecting one to be seen. Everything looked fine except they had the UBIU and the bridge unit. It was deployed over the side of the rail, but the bucket was still up. The knuckle was overhanging the traffic cone by about 6 inches. And it was high rates of speed of traffic going by. And there was 2 lanes available for traffic to pass through. I knew it wasn't one of our construction inspection zones, but I felt this was my call to stop, investigate. I immediately saw, I think it was CP Ward put out the traffic control. I immediately told them who I was and asked them to kick that cone over a little bit or a few cones and to have the operator of the UBIU meet me on the side of the guide railing. So I immediately did that and we had a briefing and it turned out to be one of my bridge inspectors I used to work with 10 years ago. And he's a very good inspector, very thorough. And maybe it's something that he became complacent and thought the work zone people put out everything perfect and got into the bucket. And I noted that his knuckle was out in traffic. And if I ever got struck, there would have been a lot of people dead or hurt really badly. And, we had that professional and he was very appreciative of me stopping to take the time to point it out and reported it and never heard anything else about it. So, like I said, it's how you approach people and how you follow up with people after certain behaviors that the perception might be, this guy's just angry. He's a safety guy, but you got to explain to them. I didn't have any time to talk and discuss why I was telling you to stop or move over or freeze. So hopefully that helps answer your questions there. I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm muted. Somebody just asked if we could share the link to access the CIR form. I just want to let everyone know, I just put the link in the chat to our construction incident reporting page on the Office of Construction website. So now to get to the next question, somebody is asking now, do you get many inquiries regarding the nighttime lighting, and is it acceptable with the increase in nighttime paving operations? Oh, are you getting inquiries regarding the nighttime lighting and its acceptability with the increase in nighttime paving operations? I'm assuming there must be talking about.
What do you mean acceptability of the lighting and the nighttime operations and lighting plan?
I don't know if they're talking about the balloon lighting. Not really sure.
This might be able to shed some light. So, the spec out details, the contractors will submit their nighttime operations and lighting plan 30 days before work starts. During the pre-cons, I always ask the contractor if they plan on going to nighttime operations. It might be obvious in the contract it is, but from my experience, some contracts, they go halfway and then all of a sudden they turn around and then within 3 days they want to go to nighttime operations because they're not meeting schedule needs or whatever the case may be. And I'm thrown into the fire and to review these nighttime operation plans and lighting plan without having 30 days to try to schedule some time to really go through it thoroughly. So I do go through when I have a lot of time, and at least I do respond to the EIC. But my big thing is I've seen I've approved or reviewed nighttime lighting plans, but the big thing is not what necessarily is on paper is actually what's out in the field. They could supply you with lighting that they may have used or that they own, but when you go to the site, they might be on another project and they need to rent other ones from another project. So you don't have the actual data from that lighting to go with the nighttime lighting plan. But I always put it on the contractor and I give them a checklist that, the contractor needs to supply the EIC with that photometric meter, which checks the required illumination, depending on the task. And that basically shows if the nighttime lighting plan is working or not based on the spacing. They could show 90-foot spacing. You get out there and they have the light plants at 120 feet apart. Are guys walking around with tape measures? Probably not. And one way to do this is just use that meter, check the spacing, and go about your business. So I always tell them that they are required to have this, this, and this, and they need to check their lighting plan prior to implementing it with a photometric meter. So as much as it's on paper and I say, yep, they got everything checked, the proof is in the pudding. It should be checked in the field.
Someone else is asking if you can comment on heavy equipment operators risking the crew and public safety by using their cell phones when they're during operations, when they're operating the machinery.
Well, needs to be taken to another level. If you can't get the change of behavior from the operator by telling them what they should or shouldn't be doing, then you need to make corrective actions and have a talk with the people in charge, the superintendent. Maybe get the EIC needs to get involved. Maybe the area construction supervisor. And if it doesn't get resolved there, we probably would need to put them on notice and remove them from the job. I mean, you got to have a professional talk, and what the expectations are that, the expectations are that you follow safe procedures, and this is not a safe procedure. So to me, I always tell people, I go, don't give me an excuse. The excuse should be out of your vocabulary. You need to provide a valid reasoning why you're doing something. It doesn't mean that we need to agree to it, but you need to think of a valid reason why. Maybe the guy was his first child, he was 45 and his wife was on bed rest and he got finally a phone call from her or something. You just don't know what situation people are in. So it's basically how you approach people and how you deliver the message, because they can have something totally different than what your understanding is. I'm not saying it's acceptable, but it's a way to ease into the conversation, knowing what their valid reasoning, why they were doing that, and then just educate them. If they don't respond, then you need to put them on notice and what the expectations, and like I said, the outcome. The outcome would be, recognize the impacts and the consequences of unsafe practice. Maybe this guy needs to hear, I got a story. Recognize impacts and consequences. This was 3 or 4 years, no, probably 6 years ago. I was working for a consultant and I came up with a contractor. I was a resident engineer, and my inspectors were watching a contractor go up into these girders about 15 feet above the roadway in an aerial lift parked in a parking spot on a low volume road. And he did not clip off, and I saw him get out of the basket into the girder. So I immediately asked my inspectors to ask this worker to come down. And at the same time, I'm looking at my inspectors like, you just allowed this to happen right in front of my nose. So I basically asked him why he was not clipped off. And he didn't get mouthy with me, but he did not have a good relationship with his wife. He was kind of distraught, probably just grinding through the work. And I told him, I'm like, I understand that you have personal differences with your wife, but this kind of behavior is not acceptable on a job. I go, and he was trying to explain to me it was safer for him to be unclipped than clipped as low volume traffic. And that he said that if ever fell, he would be able to just jump down. And I'm talking to him. I'm like, well, do you know what the rules and regulations are? And he goes, yes. And I says, well, hypothetically, if it came down and you weren't clipped off and you did get hit and you fell and you died, they may find that you are at fault and neglect, and your family wouldn't be compensated. You know, your kids are going to have to live a life without their dad and this and that. So that's what we're talking about, impacts and consequences of unsafe practices. So when I shared that story to him, he immediately put on his harness and his lanyard and he clipped off, and he thought about his kids, not his wife. So I don't know if that helps, but it all comes to making sure if someone's in non-compliance, and make sure that they recognize the impacts and consequences of unsafe practices. It's a good pedestal to stand on.
No, I think that helps. Thanks, Tom. Somebody else asked about DIP training. They say we used to have it provided. Are we now required to keep it up on our own?
DIP?
I'm not really sure what they're talking about. DIP training. DIP.
Oh, that's the driver's improvement program. I think defense improvement program. I know that the state is not offering. They used to offer it for free or for like $2.50 or something like that. But I do know that there are classes you can take, not through the state, but on your own time. You could probably register on the weekends to take them. But as far as the state providing it, I don't believe it's available. I wish it was. This goes in line with me with cell phone usage and how we get our driver's license at a young age, usually 16, 17, 18, and we don't get our driver's license taken away until our kids take it away when we're whatever, we make it to 70 or 80. But there's really no renewal class for a driver's license. Like sometimes you hold licenses and you need to take a renewal course to keep your credits up. But I wish there was something in place where had everybody that held a USA driver's license to be recertified in driving like every 5 or 10 years, that maybe get exposed to driver's improvement class. You know, I took one the first couple of months I was hired at the DOT, and it sure made an impact on me, especially being in the seat for the safety coordinator as I seen grieving families of, say, their daughter that was killed by a driver that was using their phone, and she was ready to go to college and had good grades. And this is the impact that we're talking about. Like, is the impact worth taking that risk of looking on your phone to kill somebody? I mean, you don't want to have that hovering over your shoulder. So I believe that's probably the number one way how we can improve limiting incidents on our roadways, is to have people exposed in a mandatory. But I've been trying to push this through different avenues in the last couple of years. I don't know what it's going to take to get pushed through, whether or not it's going to happen or not, but I'm going to try till the day I retire from the department to see if I can get this to change. Some people may not like it, but you may like the fact that nobody's driving distracted anymore. We see less incidents. Our work zones are safer. The outcome, I think, will be great.
Okay. Someone here did comment, I don't know what region they're in, but they did say that in their region, they do see a lot of their TCIs coming from engineering classes in college that do have their OSHA 10 and even OSHA 30. So I thought that, I mean, that might not be the case everywhere, It also could be, a result of the student's background. Maybe this graduating student worked for a contractor one summer, so he had to get it. But anyway, I thought that a lot of our newer employees may have that training. But anyway,
Yeah, I'll have to add that to the list, and maybe we can add that to the list of questions during the interview process, or maybe when they start, we can ask the TCIs just to kind of monitor that. And
you just can't hold it against them.
no, you can't hold it against them. But if you have it, there would be a good resource to put with another TCI or with somebody that didn't have it. They can teach each other. Talk about it. That's the type of thing. So you wouldn't want to put all untrained TCIs on one project. If you have a bunch that are trained, might be a good thing to put them on certain projects and spread them out.
Yeah, I guess I'm just pointing out that a lot of people come to the department already with it. But
Okay.
anyway, again, like I said before, our goal, we want everyone to have it. But it's not as simple as it seems, just because of the
it's not.
classes, the cost of the classes. There's challenges trying to get everyone. But anyway, we do want everyone to have it in construction.
Right.
Someone else says noise pollution is also a high potential risk in a work zone. And that is absolutely correct.
Yeah, there is many safety topics that we can cover. I'm not saying that noise is less than the ones that I presented. It's just that these are the ones that came to light. So if someone wants more information on hearing protection, I do know I can talk about it briefly, that it's more of a preference when it comes to ear protection. What fits the user most comfortable, whether it's an earplug or an ear muff. Some like to wear both, especially if they're working around machineries that have very high decibels and are exposed for longer terms, like maybe a person on a milling machine for 28 days straight. You might be more apt to wear earmuffs and an earplug as opposed to an inspector coming out, being 15 feet, 20 feet away, only a few hours a day. He might be okay with just earplugs. So I know it's a preference. I do this. I know the state does test, or the employees have an opportunity to test their hearing. I had my hearing checked when I started at the state. They found that as you age, you lose certain amounts of hearing, and they saw a significant loss in one of my ears. I was under the weather. This was 4 or 5 years ago. I had a cold. I went back the following year, had the same hearing test, and it showed my hearing improved in that ear, and it was solely due because I was under the weather. I had a cold. So that's a little bit of information that you might not be aware of. Make sure you're feeling well to get an accurate hearing test. And it quite surprised me because I do like loud music, or I used to.
Someone also just they said that they believe the last DIP training the DOT offered was in 2016. Anyway, I don't know. I think you already
That's
touched on
correct.
that.
That was the fall of 2016. I came to the department in July, and I remember taking it in the fall. Yeah, I think that was the last one.
Now, there's also defensive driving. That's something totally different, though, right?
Yeah, they had a state officer come in, and not only did they have a video on drunk driving, but they had a video on distracted driving, which was more disturbing than the drunk driving.
No, I'm saying, but we're through like PAF and through the union, we're offered defensive driving, but that's something totally different, correct? That's for your point reduction. It gives you a reduction on your insurance rate. That's so.
Oh yeah. You get a reduction on your insurance. Yes.
Is that the same?
Anybody can take it. It wants to pay whatever it is, a $25, even $50. It's worth it. We're saving someone's life and creating good habits for somebody and taking away a bad habit. I mean, we have at least 2,000-pound weapons that people are, and not paying attention to. I mean,
But
there's a cost. So, I mean, I know some people might complain at the cost, but if I hadn't taken it, I'd be more than willing to pay the 25 or 50 to take it in the 5 or 8 hours you may have to spend on your personal time on a Saturday. But, you also get the benefits of getting a reduction in insurance. We'll pay for the class itself.
But is that the same thing? Or are we talking about two different things? I'm still not clear. The DIP, is that something different? Or is that the same as defensive driving? Are we talking about the same things here?
I don't know. I don't know how. I truly don't know. I would think that they're probably the same.
I mean, as far as I know, the defensive driving courses are still being offered by, I don't know. I mean, maybe not during COVID, but because you can't do it in person like we would normally do. But I think that would be the only reason they wouldn't be being offered. Anyway.
Yeah. I had researched this about a year ago. If anybody really is adamant, and I probably can help them out if they want to try and get signed up, but it's probably going to cost you something out of pocket, and it's probably going to be time that you're going to take on your personal day off like a day. So you can reach out to me if you need more information. I could try to guide you in the right direction to find that class.
So back to the OSHA topic again. Somebody just commented they are an OSHA trainer. Actually, that is the case in some regions. Also, some regions do have a OSHA certified trainer, so they can train their own people. Usually, those regions have all their people trained, obviously, but that is another mechanism. Another way to do it is to get have someone in your region, if they're willing, become a trainer. Well, just to throw that out there for anybody. Someone also was mentioning too, again on the OSHA 10 subject, that I guess it's on sale right now for $79 online. So I'm going to have to look into that.
Okay. Yeah, please share that with me, and we try and work the regions. And like I said, I've taken the online class, and I've taken a few in-house classes over the last 25 years. And I prefer the in-house class, but there's always the next generation coming out, and as generations start becoming different, they tend to like certain things a little differently than some of the older people.
All right, just got confirmation from somebody. The DIP, the Driver Improvement Program, is something we used to run. That is different than defensive driving. It looks like the department is no longer providing this except to those required to drive as part of their duties. This would be like, such as plow drivers, for example. So just for everyone's sake, because I wasn't sure if we were talking about the same things. I wasn't familiar with that driver improvement program at all, but that should help clarify it. That and the defensive driving that's offered through the union are two different things.
Okay.
Both probably great things, but they're two separate things. Well, someone's saying that they aren't really different. I guess maybe they cover the same information. I don't know, but I mean, anyway, I guess it comes down to the sponsoring agency is what they say. So,
yeah.
Someone's also saying that we used to subsidize the OSHA costs for most of them. I don't know. I'm not sure what they're referring to there. If they're talking about consultants.
Well, I know DOT people would be offered the class for free, or they spend their work hours taking the class.
I mean, the bottom line with the cost for DOT employees anyway, I mean, obviously, if somebody wants to take it and pay out of their pocket, they're more than welcome to, but you shouldn't have to. That's so the whole
it's just that until we get something online or in-house, like I said, it's been kind of challenging for whatever reasons to have everybody train in a moment's notice. How do we do this? In-house classes, it's old school. It's, you have to do the waiting process. You can't get trained right away. And there are avenues where you can get trained right away, but people feel like people not be getting, it's not as informative as sitting in class. And, but like I said, there's two ways to get it done. And we'll try in any which way we can get a person trained. So if you're in need of the training, you want the training, reach out to your regional construction safety coordinator. And, I'll be talking with my other region safety coordinators. And if there's a big interest, or every year we should evaluate what the interest level is and get the proper training. And if we have people that are in-house, we need to know that those people are available or willing to maybe come to our region to train a certain group of people. I'm glad we're having this talk now, because it's usually just me and my region, and it takes a little longer. I'm glad that other people are finding this to be a hot topic as well.
Yeah, that's something that you probably maybe should be brought up at your next regional construction safety coordinator meeting. I'm going to bring this up to our safety guy in the main office too, just to get a feedback to see how many people are still out there that need it. That's all I'm interested in seeing. I know we've been trying to get everybody trained, but I'm curious to see where we're at.
Yeah, I think this is a good time, and if it happens every year to put those reminders out, it's probably better to do it in more January to try to get that feel for people to be trained in April, because it's very hard to get people trained in the middle of the season when construction season is full bore.
Oh yeah,
can't afford to take off time. So, we can make a note now, but I'd be willing to work with you, Mark, and however I can get the message out, region or statewide.
Okay, I mean, if we could, we still got March probably especially if it's on sale right now for $79. We should try to get as many people in there as we can. But that's the reason I'm going to look into it. But anyway,
yeah, and then it comes through with the processing. Which region is going to pay for. Regions are only going to pay for their employees that are assigned to their region, and the paperwork that's involved. But that's just part of the process that we just have to deal with. That shouldn't be the reason why we don't offer it. Because it's not the reason.
So that's the last of the questions for now. Has anyone else got anything else?
No, I'm sorry I didn't bring donuts for this virtual meeting. I don't know if it happens, but I was emailed by one of my EICs early on, so I appreciate the the email. Kind of lightened my mood for the day. So I hope everybody has a very successful and safe season, and continue to learn about safety and educate others. Share your stories. Don't hesitate to talk to your neighbor. We all want the same thing at the end of the day.
All right, I guess that's it. Someone said thank you for all the good information. I don't know if you can see the chats or not, Tom, but
I can when I unshare my screen.
okay. All right, I guess I'm not going to end it yet. I'll wait till people start closing off, but I guess that ends everything for today. So thank you, Tom. Really appreciate it. This is recorded, as I stated to everyone, and this will be available on our website along with all the other videos that you have seen. And as I also stated, this concludes our inspector training sessions for this year. As far as next year goes, I'm not sure how we're going to do it. Ideally, we'd rather do these live. The advantage of doing it this way is that we can reach more people, but things are always better live, but especially for when you're trying to have discussions like what we were trying to do using the chat today. But anyway, we'll see what's in store next year. It all depends on what's going on with this pandemic and state of the travel, whether we can travel or not. But So anyway, we'll see. But we do plan on
I-
continuing these trainings, or maybe adding more even.
Mark, I got one final last. If anybody has any constructive feedback, this is my first live training. I want to thank Mark personally for spending time yesterday working out the bugs with WebEx and going through a dry run. So if anybody is asked to do any live presentation or something that's being recorded, I recommend that they get together with their host and do a dry run beforehand. It made my life so much easier today as I was worried bug on Monday, but it went as though it was supposed to be. But I'd like to hear any constructive feedback from any of you of maybe something I can do improve on. Like maybe I was saying too many arms, or I got two screens. Maybe look at the screen. Whatever you have for me, please reach out so I can do better. That's all.
I have no complaints.
We'll see, huh?
No, I
All
think
right,
it
well,
went
thank
well.
you.
Thank you very much. I think you did a great job.
All right, thank you.
But yeah, if anybody has anything, suggestions or something, feel free. We're not gonna. I don't think Tom's feelings are gonna be hurt, right?
No, no.
So, but I don't expect to get too many complaints anyway.
Yeah.
All right, people are slowly signing off, but I guess we can still remain on for a few more minutes.
I'm reading some of the.
I think this might have went better being live than some of the presentations, but
Yeah, I think it helped too. I think what I did this morning too is I went through and I kind of rehearsed what I did yesterday, but I put it in paper, and it kind of helped me through at least half the slides, where yesterday I was kind of shooting from the hip.
yeah.
But yeah.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.